watch a lot of these kinds of videos, you know? I do. And I've always wanted to make them. I've always wanted to talk about something that I'm passionate about for 6 hours like Luke Stevens. But I really just want to touch upon more of the social aspect of these things that I'm going to talk about and why these things have come to be in recent years. And if you don't know what I'm talking about the female hero archetype. So let's talk about it. I've heard people say it all. Strong female heroes are annoying. They're smug and they're overpowered from the get-go. They have almost no character and their plots are stupid. Yeah, they're stupid. Some are stupid, some are not stupid. I'm sure you don't feel the same about She-Hulk than you do about Sun from Princess Mononoke. And I'm also incredibly sure, and this is tried, tested, and true, that there is a list of women in media that follow the female hero archetype, but they lack something. Something's off. And there's nothing inherently bad about female characters in their arc, but the way they are presented, it's not good. It's pretty bad, actually. So I wanted to do a character study, well, multiple character studies, and what I want to go into is the why, and how these characters come to be in commercial media of today. If you haven't seen Blue-Eyed Samurai, get up, go, do it right now. I'll wait, here, alone. I'm bored. I really can't wait that long. I'll give you a short summary, okay? And careful because I'm going into spoiler territory. Set in 17th century Edo period Japan, Blue-Eyed Samurai narrates the story of Mizu, a mixed-race sword master living in disguise as a man, seeking revenge from the white men in Japan that led her to have such a horrible fate. She seeks this revenge because they doomed her. They doomed her mother, they doomed her marriage, and everything alike indirectly. Like the title, she has striking blue eyes reflecting her shameful heritage, which at the time was frowned upon and seen as monstrous. Mizu navigates the complexities of identity in a society entrenched in tradition, fueled by personal tragedy, and a vendetta and a cool sword. That's it. Thank you. I want to start by saying this. The weight of every single character should be defined by 3 things: nature, nurture, and circumstance. And let me expand a little bit on this. Nature is who they are inherently, their personality, right? Who they are as a person. Nurture is what their story is, their background, what made them and into who they are. And circumstance is the position they find themselves in at any given point in the story. We could say this about every single character that has ever existed. All these characters have these defining characteristics and traits, from a My Little Pony fanfiction OC to a blockbuster trope character. But really, what is the difference? It's just a matter of sheer presentation. Now let's break down a character like Mizu. Mizu is defined by her nature, who she is as a woman, what she values and seeks, right? Her nurture, that cruel, undeserved treatment she had and has received ever since she was born, and her circumstance. And because of these factors, she is a compelling, dark, tragic, stubborn woman, and she is clear about this with herself. She is well written and shaped to be a woman that challenges social norms, but secretly, without anybody else knowing about her feats or accomplishments. Mizu is the strong woman archetype because her struggle is defined by every single hardship she has faced as a biracial woman living in Edo period Japan, a woman that has to conceal herself to others. We know as an audience that Mizu's path would have been paved with not with sharp stone, but with a minefield if she were to reveal her identity. It would have been 10 times worse if she was a blue-eyed woman instead of a blue-eyed man. But the show really isn't about that. It's about her path of revenge that eventually causes the downfall of Edo and the downfall of herself, right? A path of death and destruction that estranged her from her values and the people that she had in her party. Yes, Mizu is strong, and while her struggle as a woman might not be outright said, it is definitely implied. It is implied where her husband sees how skilled she is and looks upon her with disgust. She broke expectations there. That is something in the strong female archetype trope. And it was implied where if she were to reveal her gender to Swordfather, she would not be his apprentice. This secret, though, is what confines her from being truly herself, as we saw when she showed her true self to Mikio, her husband. And we all saw how that went down. Although her story is not about proving anything to the world or protecting it. She's selfish, she's driven, and that doesn't make it less meaningful. In fact, what makes her so special is that she is contained, and that, unfortunately, is what makes her so well written. Her story is contained to herself, and her prowess is strung within a revenge plot that drives her arc forward. This is what makes her compelling. Let's take a look at another type of woman in the show, Akemi. She wants to break her binds and prove something in her world, but she is not devoid of personality, and she's definitely not smug about it. She fits perfectly into the strong female archetype mold, doesn't she? That's something to think about. But is it badly written? Does it make any less meaningful when she says, I want to be great? I think what makes Akemi such a striking character and so different is that she is inherently feminine and poised, yet she is willing to kill a man to protect that freedom that she's always craved. She is ready to adapt and work from within her confines, although she does want to break them. I don't want this to turn preachy, but it is a reality that we must discuss and address, and it plays into Akemi's nurture and circumstance. Women at this time, right, and also after, were oppressed for centuries, millennia, and across most large cultures, they are put under the power of men, or even at the mercy of it. In history, it is always about a woman's role, and this is precisely what Blue-Eyed Samurai is trying to say with Akemi's arc. I heard it say before that Akemi's arc is defined by the birdcage that she gets. Before, she was in it, and at the end of the show, she is the owner of it. This qualifies her as a perfect example of the strong woman archetype, but done without what we dislike about these tropes in recent years. It is possible. We can do this. And Mizu, in turn, is not defined by the roles a woman has to fit like Akemi does, because she has been cosplaying as a femboy twink for as long as she's been alive. And the one time she wasn't, she was reminded of why this role of being a woman is so restrictive. She has been hidden, outcast, but nonetheless treated as a man. And this is the contrast between these two. That's what makes them so powerful, so impactful, really so captivating to watch. This is how it's supposed to be done.
Women.
When we turn over the page and look at the common female protagonist archetypes, they are uncontained. They don't serve the purpose of small vendettas they have to fulfill. Their purpose is to prove to others just how strong they are, and this usually comes with a punch to the gut to the people that underestimated her. This is child's writing, at best. It is easily understandable by most and made for a superficial understanding. Another thing we have to think about with movies like the Marvels is that they're not marketed for you, adult viewer with nuanced perspectives. They're marketed for every single tier level of IQ to comprehend. They drive forward stories that are plain in nature so that every single age group can either enjoy or understand it. That makes it increasingly difficult to create meaningful characters with layers and layers of personality and depth like it's supposed to be. And the problem is that when you dumb down a plot, the characters get dumbed down too. They're just victims of this whole system. I would say that if we actually went in and changed the target audience, the movies seen here would have received better stories and better characters. That's something I admired about a movie like The Incredibles, which is also a superhero movie. Not to mention it's animated, is that it is a movie made for adults but marketed for children. With children in mind, sort of, that kind of thing. There's also a rising need to make everything so political. Why so political? Well, because being woke is trendy, and to add inclusion where inclusion isn't due, where it misrepresents things, is now commonplace, where so many things just get warped and misshapen from actually something edible. We all understand that Disney is at a complete domination of most successful media nowadays, right? They bought Lucasfilms. They made a deal with Fortnite recently. They bought Marvel, and essentially they have the market clouded in their aura. I want to mention that this specifically shouldn't be a defining factor in all this, and that actual good characters have come out of Disney. But we have seen a decade-long decline in the quality of their works here. It's not just Disney. It's most of every big studio in Hollywood nowadays. These factors determine what characters we receive in our beloved franchises, which I'm gonna make a whole video on its own about that. And they just leave a sour taste in your mouth by the end of it. And all of this to say that whatever characters we're receiving nowadays are simply a byproduct of the current political and cultural era we live in, and for the reason of not being subject to onslaught for lack of representation of marginalized groups. As if putting people of color in the Napoleon coronation scene was necessary. It really got me. That's something I want to... we're not going to talk about that right now. That's completely off topic.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Now let's talk about a female character that had so much f***ing potential. Rey. Rey started off oh so good. She started seeming like a complete newbie. Fast forward, skip to the next movie, as she is the next coming of the Messiah, basically. They did her f***ing dirty. We are finally looking forward to an actual good arc, not her healing people like literal Jesus. If you haven't seen the Critical Drinkers video about this, I'm gonna try to summarize what I think. If you haven't seen it, go check that out, please. Let's dissect her. Her nature first. She's a girl that is inherently good and sees the good in others. Nurture, loneliness, neglect, separation from her parents and others in her community. Crazy. Circumstance. She is force sensitive. finally, she has a purpose that she can follow. But unfortunately, at first glance, she comes off as a bit of a Mary Sue, you know? Like she's crazy talented at everything, flying ships, fixing stuff, speaking different languages, kicking ass, and even rocking the Force. Now, that wouldn't be too bad if her backstory explained how she picked up all these skills. Maybe she used to be a Jedi. Maybe she ran away from her past. And now she's living the low-key life on Jakku, but nah. Turns out she's just a poor orphan without anyone to teach her the ropes. So it does feel off. Like, how did she get so good at everything without any proper training or backstory to back it up? But no, we don't get that. She is just a nobody that is a prodigy at everything that they put in front of her. How does that make any sense? Fortunately, though, I know a lot of people like Rey, me included. She is not an all bad character. She has her moments. And at times, I was even inspired by her. She's definitely likable, but writing her with no flaws, and the only flaw that she could have is rejecting her ancestry, is a choice. It's an interesting choice. We see her time and time again trying to prove herself, and she ping-pongs between different motivations, which isn't unheard of. She is very young, but the best arcs are the ones that resolve every time we have a segment of that character that we're reminded of, or those that consistently get resolved throughout several movies. And that is the kind of arc that Rey really deserved. She definitely has a great foundation, but she never goes through the hero's journey, like the drinker does point out in his video. And that's entirely true. Let's take a look at Luke. He basically started from scratch, figured out how to handle a lightsaber, took on Vader thinking he could handle it. He got his ass kicked. He left, he met Yoda, he got some serious training, and then he rolled back with the skills to finally take down his archenemy. This makes sense. He couldn't handle Vader at first, got beaten in the second one, but finally gave him a whooping in the third. Now Rey, she takes down Kylo and leaves him in the dust in her very first movie. That kind of sets the tone, you know? After that, I never really felt like Kylo could actually be a real threat to Rey in later films, and he was marketed in all three. And we never really got any of her training until it was squeezed into the third movie. She isn't really cocky like Korra, more like pleasantly confident, and this just doesn't come off right. Rey fits the badly written strong female archetype. That's just it. It's a shame, truly, when there's finally a push for f***ing inclusion. I don't think it's because people hate women. I know one reason why. Most of these blockbuster heroines are subject to terrible writing and interpretation, and that gives these heroines such a bad name. But nobody complained about bad writing before. When it came to men, I sound like a Karen, and that segue is f***ing horrible, but just listen. There is no commentary about the strong man because they have no expectations to break when it comes to shooting guns and their identity or gender. That is irrelevant to their actions. It is just accepted because of historical context. You guys were sent off to war and shit. Sent off to battle, to defend stuff. Your ancestors did that. They also did most of the heavy work, depending on where you're from. And I'm not trying to diminish people who identify as men by saying that they know no strife. I'm only trying to point out that being a man is seldom surprising when it comes to action and fighting. Part of our society is based around adjusting to gender roles that either confine or liberate us. And traditionally in Hollywood, this is always addressed. It just makes things simple. And this is where the video turns preachy, and that's not what we want. What I just want to do is plant a seed in all of our heads to be mindful of what we're watching and what these soul-sucking monsters are doing to your night out at the movie theater. I think it's a writing trap, personally. Writers should be making stories about characters that transcend gender, but that's not possible. The gender is an important part that does influence all three. Nature, nurture, and at times it can influence circumstance too. It's tricky, and a balance that has to be considered when writing a script, and especially a lead character. This is the conclusion part. To conclude all of this, I have heard some say that they're sick of the strong woman archetype, and that it's bad. And some may argue that it's because their stories are based on breaking away from what society expects from them. And this qualifies it as bad writing because it becomes a social fucking statement about a woman's role. And I think sometimes that what these film critics forget is that everything about being a woman is breaking away from what society expects from us. Even a man's experience is the same. Such a big part about living is breaking free from what our fathers think of us, what our mothers taught us to be. So it's no wonder why it's a big part of writing a woman in action, where she is shocking and as bold as she is. And it's about being strong not because she's not only tackling physical hardships, but also hardships because of the reaction to her. These contemporary heroines are not written to conceal themselves, while Mizu, fictitious historical character, has to. And that's where this contrast essentially comes from. Writers have to be more mindful of what makes a woman, plus what makes her strong and capable for her to have a story arc that is just as strong and meaningful as the rest of them. To be honest, the whole reason I made this video, with the help of my editor, Pablo, shout out, show yourself. With the help of my editor, Pablo, shout out, show yourself. The whole reason I made this is because I saw someone say that blue-eyed samurai breaks the strong female archetype, and I don't think that. I think that treating the strong female archetype as if it's some sort of dirty word is wrong. Me personally, I think that we should approach it with the context clues and historical references necessary to give correct criticism about the subject. Let's not forget that media is declining steadily, and that the stories that we've been getting lately are... Although we have the power to step outside the boundary and write characters like Mizu, like Vi, or Jinx, Hollywood cucks all of us lately. And to stand on a soapbox and say all of this shit is sexist and all these women in media are driven by an agenda to not be sexist, that's stupid. It's what a beta cuck would do. And I am not a beta cuck. I'm not gonna say that all strong female characters should be revered because of sexism and shit, nor am I gonna say that these women shouldn't be written altogether. We have to stand in the middle. Be the Ashitaka. See with eyes unclouded by hate, in a manner of speaking. If we can't explore both sides of the coin, or even all facets of a topic, who are we to fucking talk about it? All this rant to say, go to film school, okay? And write me a good story. That's all I want. Then produce it with tens of millions of dollars in budget and make me a good movie. Oh god. Writing stories and characters is hard. Don't be naive. It takes a lot more work than you think. There's no such thing as a perfect character, but we have a few that have come close in that regard, and seeing them is just such a fucking delight. And then you see the characters like flashing on the screen and shit. Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do an ending bit, Pablo. I think they're dumb. I think I just want to end with the slideshow or whatever. 1, 2, 3. I'd like to say thanks to everyone who has supported me thus far in this journey, and I hope to see you soon in the next one. Also, let me know what you want. What do you want? What do you want me to talk about? That always helps. I have a Twitch. Bye.